Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guests are fellow comic podcasters, with one being the host of the Shortbox podcast and the other co-hosting the Oblivion Bar podcast. It's Badr Milligan and Chris Hacker. Thanks for coming on.
Wow, I got to witness that live. I always thought that you pre-recorded some of those, but yeah. Wow, you do them live. Same. Impressed.
Do either of you pre-record? Do you do any of that stuff?
No,
Okay.
it's on off the cuff. We have a transcript, but we barely use it. It's one of those things where we just sort of say what's in our heart at the moment.
I always point to Fat Man on Batman, especially those early years, as my North Star when I first started out. And I just followed his lead, where he like spends the first 5 minutes literally like hyping up his guest and going through all of their accolades. Like some of those intros used to be so long, and I think I borrowed from that too much. So I'm always a live read.
I can't do that. I'm always unnatural, or I always go with the same thing, and I want to keep it as quick as possible and just go straight into the chat. But the funny thing is I've been doing it for so long that there are like some things that I just can't say differently at this point. Like when I say my full Patreon URL, it always comes out as patreon.com/offpanel, and I can't not say it like that because I've done it in the outro a million times. Podcasting has warped my brain.
Yeah. It's anytime that I feel like I'm around friends that I want to like know a lot about, or we're sort of talking about a subject that we all really care about, I turn my interview like voice on immediately. I go through like an external transcript in my brain that I'm like, so tell me about your process when you were, like I do all that shit when we're out just like at Chili's or something,
Oh my God.
Dude, yeah.
Have you ever been asked? Have you ever been asked by a creator if you were currently interviewing them when you're just having a normal conversation?
God. All the time. And it's like, I promise I'm not. But I mean, if you don't mind me pressing record on this recorder I have in my pocket.
I had somebody ask me that when I was at dinner with them, and I was like, oh man. Is this? And my wife was just like, this is just how he is. This is just how he is. Yeah. And it is how I am. And it's probably how all three of us are, right? Like to some degree, you get into doing this because you kind of already are interested in doing it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more of like it comes from a place of curiosity and like inquisitiveness, I guess, where it's just, podcasting is sort of narcissistic in theory and in practice, so it's a lot of like, here's the things about me. But I also think that almost like it's like 70-30, the 30 being, I really want to know everything about this person that I admire. And how do we get to like the core of this thing that we really love, whether that is, again, a process question or and David, you do an incredible job of this, where you have these really organic, comfortable conversations with people. And I think that lets folks let their guard down and they're comfortable in that sense of exposing certain elements of either their work or themselves as people in an intimate way that Badr, you, me, Brad Lisa over at Comic Book Couples Counseling, John Suntress over at Word Balloon just don't do or can't do.
Badr, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to say something on the topic of like podcasting being very narcissistic, but also, David, something that you said about just realizing your vocal tics, your nervous tics, things like that. I think there's something very reflective about podcasting, and especially as me going on 13 years and someone that edits their own show. The amount of, I can't even probably fathom or calculate the amount of hours I have spent listening to my voice. And not just my voice, but like the nervous tics, the things I say, how I like to say things, certain words I slur
the
or
breaths.
Skip. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like it is a very intimate experience with your own voice, which only adds to the narcissistic claim that Chris had. But when I was recording with a full crew, it was a weird sense of like, I got to know them even deeper, on a deeper level, right? I got to really know their voice in every single way. So when I had like 3 other co-hosts, it was interesting to learn, like, see how I could just recognize their vocal patterns by just waveforms. Like I was really getting like, oh, this is Ed's breath right here. Oh, this is Cesar. It's such a weird inside look into someone's brain, having their voice in your head for hundreds, if not thousands of hours.
Mm-hmm. The waveform thing is so funny. So for listeners that don't know, waveforms are just like the visual representation of like a sound. And so it's funny how like when you've done it long enough, you're like, I know whose that is. Like
I can pick an out of give me a million shapes. I can pick you out an on a waveform every like 10 out of 10 times, guaranteed.
Waveforms are like a podcast or Rorschach test.
That's right, it is.
Okay, I don't want to rip it off the wall, but one of the nicest and most thoughtful gifts I ever got.
I think you showed this to me before. Yeah,
okay.
Sorry.
I would move the camera around, but I'd have to get up and all that stuff. But my wife got me as a gift one year this wooden frame that had there's a waveform on it, and it has a QR code, and she was like, scan it, I got this for you. I already knew what it was before I even scanned it. It was my intro. I always say, yo, welcome to the Shortbox podcast. So I've got that forever framed behind me, and I just think it's a whole testament to all of this stuff we're talking about.
That's amazing.
Badr and I have the market cornered on comic book podcasts that start with the word yo. All right. Well, for listeners, this episode is going to be a bit different, as we're going to actually be doing a fantasy draft of hyper-specific things from comics we love today to celebrate the medium as we head into New York Comic Con week.
Let's go.
That will be the main focus. But before we do that, I want to give listeners a little background on who Badr and Chris are and the shows that they do. So we'll start with you, Chris. Give me your 30-second pitch on your show. What can listeners expect from the Oblivion Bar?
Oh gosh, just a whole lot of tomfoolery. We like to call ourselves the bad boy of comic podcasting because we'll say the things that other people won't, but in a respectful, nice way, of course. It's the Oblivion Bar, a comic book podcast, is essentially a weekly show where me and my best friend / co-host Aaron Knowles get together, talk about movies, comics, television, video games, anime, all the things. Sort of the central pillar of our show is interviews, like most of us here that are on the show today, where we talk to creators. And I think sort of the goal of the Oblivion Bar is to sort of give them here's the thing. We are not journalists. I should probably say that at the top. We are not journalists. I know that's sort of a easy cop out in 2025 to go, oh, I'm not a journalist, so I can say whatever dumb thing I want to say. That's not what we mean. It's that there are people out there who do what, like David and Brad and Lisa do, that is like very, it's a reflection. It's sort of a commentary on the medium that is a lot more thought provoking. Whereas we like to be thought provoking and respectful and have these like really interesting conversations, but it's also, we like to sort of let our hair down a little bit and maybe have a little bit more fun, I guess, in the conversation and sort of keep it loose. So anyway, yeah, the Oblivion Bar, every Monday, new episodes. It's a lot of fun. We've been doing it since April of 2020. I'm going on at about 55 seconds now. So yeah, go check us out, oblivionbarpodcast.com.
I think it's really funny that you say you're the bad boys of comic book podcasting, given the fact that I think that, but at least between the three of us, you're the single nicest one to every single person who comes on.
I don't know
you're
about
like,
that.
I'm going to bring you on because I'm a bad boy. Let me tell you, Tradmore, you are beautiful to me and I love you.
I think that's just a testament to what bad boys are in comic books. Just the nicest
that's
people
true.
ever.
Yeah. It's a sliding scale, and the scale doesn't start that bad. It's just mostly boy. But Badr, what about you? What's your pitch for the short box?
All right, elevator pitch for the Short Box. The Short Box podcast is one of the longest running weekly comic book podcasts out there. I've been doing this since 2012. I don't recommend you listen to any of those first ones unless you just really love raw comic book talk. But I like to think of the Short Box as the best way to feel like you're at a local comic shop without ever leaving the house. I try to put a spotlight on the people that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making the comic books we love, but also the folks that celebrate comics, that champion comic culture and everything in between. I've probably interviewed your favorite writer, your favorite comic artist, but also cosplayers, journalists, other podcasters, etc. So the Short Box podcast. I call it a comic book talk show. So when you think of the best talk show hosts ever, Conan O'Brien, your Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, I like to I've hopefully catered the Short Box to feel more like a talk show than your standard comic podcast.
I like that you guys are actually good at that. I'm terrible at it. I'm just like, I talk about comics. You can listen to it or you want or not, whatever. Like when I went on Chris's podcast recently, he did this intro and I'm just like, why are you better at explaining my stuff than I am at explaining my stuff?
Well, we want to go back a little bit because, Badr, you mentioned how, or actually it might have been both of you were talking about the Fat Man on Batman, sort of long-winded intro, and both you both being sports fans and people listening to the show know this. I don't really have like a ton of affinity for Pat McAfee, even though I'm here in Indianapolis. But he used to do these really long, sort of verbose intros for his guests that he would have on the show. And we just sort of like took that and adapted it into a similar thing with comic creators. So we just list out your entire bibliography, every award you've won, and then like our favorite 3 things about you. And then we put that into the intro and make it super long and, embarrass them in that way. But, a lot of these folks are sitting at home by themselves behind their Jack Kirby cigar-stained art table. And I think at the very least, what we could do outside of helping them promote this series, this comic book or whatever they're promoting at the time, the least we could do is give them a nice, warm, long welcome. I don't know. I love it. Yeah.
You do a really good job with that, but when you had Brian K. Vaughan, I thought you went a little too far when you said he won his 3rd grade spelling bee. I mean, that was really embarrassing. It's completely ridiculous.
Deep dive.
Yeah, really getting in there.
Bottom of the abyss.
Who's the guy in hip hop who like will show up and have like a random fact?
Nardwar,
Nardwar, yeah. He has this like, it's my job to know these things. That's me
exactly.
in podcasting.
No, he's the man.
And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Judge Dredd magazine turns 35 years old this October, and it'll be celebrating with a very special issue that's perfect for first-time readers. Featuring the return of the critically acclaimed series Dreadnoughts and Megalopolis, this 100-page issue is a brilliant way to jump into the crazy world of 2000 AD. You'll also find incredible news stories featuring Judge Dredd, Judge Anderson, and much more inside. Get a print subscription to the magazine and it'll arrive through your mailbox every month, or get a Combi subscription and receive 2000 AD each week as well. If you subscribe digitally, you can download DRM-free copies of each issue for only $9 a month. That's 128 pages of incredible comics every month for less than $10. Head to 2000AD.com and click on subscribe now, or download the 2000 AD app and start reading today. And now, back to the show. Before we get into our main event, I do want to bring up one last thing. For listeners that don't know, all 3 of us, Badr, Chris, and I, along with Brad and Lisa Gullickson from Comic Book Couples Counseling, are going to be on a panel together at New York Comic Con. It's going to be Friday, October 10th in room 1C03. What time is it? I don't have that down.
12:45.
12:45. See, these gentlemen are professionals, and I'm a hobo person over here. It is a live comic podcast crossover event. The Short Box meets Comic Book Couples Counseling meets the Oblivion Bar meets Off Panel. If you are going to be at the con, make sure to join us at the panel. And if you're not, we have good news. Badr is, again, a professional. Good at what he does and is going to record it. So it will be published later on as an actual podcast. And it's going to be a true crossover podcast, as we're going to have our own segments, because I went rogue and ruined Badr's life.
No, look, betterment. Right? I'm a firm believer. Improving. Yeah. So, there will be a Q&A involved. So if you have a question you want us to answer during the panel, hit us up and we'll get it in the mix. And that's true if you're not going to be there. You can still get it in, and you can listen to it later. But guys, I know you have done this before. In 2023, you did one at New York Comic Con with, most of the same crew. Yep. Mm-hmm. What has you the most excited about doing the panel this time? Badr, we'll start with you. Oh, man. One, to be in New York. I don't know why. Just something about being in New York as a comic book and hip hop fan. The air is just palpable for me. Yeah, same. So what am I most excited for? You know what? I'll say this much. David, the addition of you, straight up the addition of you. I had the opportunity to do a couple panels with Chris and Comic Book Couples Counseling. Big shout out to Brad and Lisa. I think what's going to make this panel different last year, or not last year, but the 2023 panel, I think was more aimed at like, hey, how do you start a podcast? Very podcast, insider baseball, behind the scenes talk. I am confident that this one is going to feel like a perfect amalgam of all of our shows, like a great snapshot and feel. I think we're all bringing, like you said, we're going to each have our own segment. It's going to feel like a true crossover episode. And I mean, 4 podcasts, which is the most amount of podcasts I've ever done a crossover episode, but I'm excited for it, especially some of the ideas that we shared, the segments we're talking about. And to your point, we're looking for Q&A. So we're looking for crowd participation. I know Chris, he's going to probably bring a bunch of goodies and giveaways. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a damn good time. All right. And I think that was the mindset of proposing this, this idea to do this panel is to bring some original programming to New York Comic Con to make it feel like a live show. I've done a couple of live shows with the Short Box here in Jax, and they're just fun. It's a different energy to it. It's something about being able to see the crowd. And really quick, to go back to something we've been kind of talking about, I mentioned helping newbie podcasters. One of the most common questions I get is like downloads. What should my download numbers be? I'm not reaching, I'm only getting 100 downloads. And one reframe that we always use is that 50 downloads might sound, rather small. But if you imagine sitting in an auditorium and there's 50 people in that auditorium that you're speaking to that are like actively listening and taking in your words, like there's something powerful about that. There's something very humbling, and it's a huge honor to have a crowd come out and hear us talk about freaking comic books. Like, and for them to have this same passion, I think this panel is going to be a lot of fun. And Brad and Lisa's segment is going to be hilarious. But Chris, what were you going to say?
Come on now. I think what I'm most excited about, It is excited, but I think the better way to describe it would be, the thing I'm most interested in is to see how we're able to fit everything we want to fit into an hour.
Oh my God.
Because we're a bunch of blabbermouths that want to
We haven't even gotten past this intro.
No, exactly.
There's no wrong answer.
It's one of those things where it's all of my favorite podcasts sort of wrapped.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if the only way it would change, and shout out to Greg, Mike, and Andy over at the First Issue Club in Kansas City. If they were there, it would literally be all of my favorite comic podcasts on a stage together talking. So
be the JSA.
That's right. It would literally be like the freaking Avengers of comic podcasting. And, there's something to, and this is something that this is maybe a precursor to our eventual conversation in our fantasy draft, is that there's something about just sitting around with a couple of folks who not only are really huge fans of a thing that we all are a fan of that. Like we're all big fans of this thing. And we can talk inside baseball and understand it and joke about it and share things we love about it. There's something to it. It's almost unspeakable. Like there's no way to perfectly describe that feeling. And to speak on what you were saying there, Badr, a moment ago, to do that in front of a crowd of, and if you've ever done a panel or if you've been to a panel at New York Comic Con, it is a giant auditorium, like that probably could hold, we're not going to have this many people, but like it could hold upwards of like 300-400 people. To do that, to have that conversation with a bunch of folks that you really like and respect and admire, among folks who love that stuff as much as you do, if not more, it's no better feeling.
I'll add this really quick. I think too is that we're all trying to bring an entertaining show. We're not there to like talk everyone's ear off or, about some boring topic. I think it's interesting that we all have our unique flares and we're entertainers. I think all of us have a unique perspective, like, our what we find funny, our sense of humor, and to bring all of that together, I just have a really good feeling about this panel.
Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to bring chaos urchin energy to it.
That's been David's goal the entire time. He just wants to come in there and add madness to it.
I've said it from the beginning. I'm just like trying to, I want to be like the one who throws it off and just makes it like, because I've told you both before this, I don't really like panels. And so like, how do I make this fun? And hopefully my answer is not ruining your guys' good time, but we'll find out.
No.
All right, let's get to today's main segment as Badr and Chris have joined me for Off Panel's first ever hyper-specific things we love about comics fantasy draft. This draft will find each of us drafting 7 hyper-specific things we love from comics, and then at the end, we will have someone here to help us declare a winner of said draft. Before we get into it, though, let's define what I mean when I say hyper-specific. We aren't allowed to pick Tom King's writing or Daniel Sampere's art or Batman or something. It can't just be a general idea. It has to be specific aspects of each of those things, and it can be about a comic or a creator, or it can be about a character or a story or whatever. We will explain our picks as we go along, and then we'll discuss them afterwards before moving on. We're going snake draft style, so that means one of you will go first, I will do a third, I'll go twice in a row, and then we'll go back and forth, yada, yada, yada. To decide who goes first, each of you pick a number between 1 and 30. Whoever is closer will go first.
2.
13.
Badr. 24. Ken Griffey Jr.
Nice.
That's right. All right, Badr. What is
the
your
greatest swing of all time, by the way, if I could just say really quickly, Ken Griffey Jr., the like prototypical swing in all of baseball.
I have a signed bat by Ken Griffey Jr. right over there, which you can't see. But yeah, he's my guy. He's the reason why I love baseball as much as I do. But Badr, what is your first pick in the hyper-specific things fantasy draft?
Can I just say really quick, at first I was racking my brain about this. Like David, I reread that email like 3 times. Like, okay, come on, Badr. You can do this. You're a professional. Don't embarrass the Short Box Nation. But once I got 1 or 2, it was like the floodgates opened.
Same
it's like,
here.
I was
Same
like,
here.
oh shit, there's a lot of niche things. Like, okay, so off the rip, I'm going to go with the odd satisfaction of peeling the self-adhesive of a bag and board and the static magnetism powers that you get from trying to clean them all up at once.
You gotta get that little piece of plastic off your hand.
I've got a perfect example. I know Gotham City Limit Comic Shop, which is my local comic shop, carries the BCW self-adhesive bags and boards. And when I tell you it's the biggest game changer, I can only imagine how much money I've probably saved on buying like rolls of Scotch tape, maybe like $50, but still, there's something so satisfying about peeling that little self-adhesive.
Yeah.
Badr, I love this pick. This is so hyper specific. It is not even about comics. It's about comic supplies, which is even better. But this is, I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. Respect to your pick. I hate the stupid adhesives because they I wear them by the end of it. It's like I'm wearing armor made out of horrible plastic.
I find those strips everywhere in this house. Even though I think I'm like, I've only, I had to put one bag and board. I'll find like 50 of them underneath my bed. So yeah, that was just the tip of the iceberg of my picks.
Can I ask you to be just a little more specific? Because I also do the resealable BCW bags and boards. But do you do modern or do you do Silver Age?
I think I do Silver
modern,
Age.
right? Really?
Is it Silver Age or modern?
It looks like silver. Here's why I asked.
Silver, yeah. I like a little wiggle room.
That's what it is right there. When you buy modern books, they're obviously a little bit smaller than Silver Age. They're not as wide. So you buy silver and it gives them room to breathe.
Exactly.
If you buy modern bags and boards, they put the bag.
It's like skinny jeans. It's like the skinny jeans really comic book.
Yeah, and you can get some binding issues and all that. And again, that's totally up to you on how you're wanting to preserve your books and why. But like modern, they are too tight. So sure. Silver Age resealable BCW is the way to go.
And I'll be honest, sometimes the Silver Age will fit a thin trade paperback too.
Oh yes,
so I'll go for that.
You heard it here first. Modern bags and boards, the skinny jeans of bags and boards. You know what's funny is I thought you two were a little, at first you're like, I don't know what about this. Like, I don't know if I'm going to come up with stuff. And I love the fact that off the bat, just Badr completely crushes it. Yeah. Chris, what's your pick?
All right, here we go. I absolutely adore the relationship between Victor Von Doom and his goddaughter, Valeria Richards.
That's a very good pick.
Okay. Let me explain this to you guys. Let me just lay the land and we can talk about it, okay? So, first appearing in Fantastic Four 254 from February of 1983, writer and artist John Byrne. He created, he had this storyline going.
Damn, you're Wikipedia-ing us in your answers?
That's Chris. I gotta add some context.
David, it's Chris. This is what he fucking does.
You go back to this storyline from the early 80s with John Byrne. He's writing, he's drawing, he's at the top of the game in terms of Marvel. And, he's creating this brand new character, the fourth child for Reed and Sue, due to her parents being exposed to cosmic radiation and being conceived while they're in the negative zone. It caused Valeria's birth to be traumatic for Sue. Despite bringing this issue, and this is an issue that goes on for many issues within Fantastic Four, they bring in fellow scientists like Bruce Banner and Michael Morbius and Walter Lankowski and Otto Octavius. They ask all these folks, what's going on with Sue? How can we fix it? And no one has any answers. And while Reed and Ben are off doing something else, they get caught up doing something on an off planet. Sue goes into labor and there's no one around. No one can help. Human Torch Johnny is around looking for everybody. And he ends up going to the last person that you would ever expect for help. Uncle Dr. Doom.
Baby.
Victor comes in there and he goes, listen, I can help you. I can help you with this and we can figure it out through magic and science. But I want naming rights and I want to be the godfather of this
naming rights. Like she's like an arena.
Yeah. It's like a 360 deal.
That's right.
It's like, I want all of it.
With a little bit of trepidation, Sue agrees at the last second. Victor is allowed to name the child after properly, giving birth. And he chooses the name Valeria, which is the name of one of his childhood loves, the childhood love, I guess, not one of them. Holding the newborn in his hands, he took this opportunity to weave an enchantment, turning Valeria into a familiar. And despite that, the amity between Doom and Richards, Reed Richards, that's sort of their relationship dynamic. Valeria has this very close relationship with Dr. Doom going forward. So I'll end on this. This is the last thing. This is what Doom says at the very end of that issue. He says, I place you under my royal protection, little Valeria. If anyone is ever foolish enough to strike at you, they will deal with me. And as Doom walks away, he says this to Reed Richards. He says, enjoy your family, Richards, and remember every time you look at your wife and daughter that Doom saved them both when you could not.
The ultimate dunk.
There you
Doom
go.
is
Dunked
like,
on my man for life.
That's
just such a petty dick, and I love him.
Yeah, right?
It's amazing.
But the relationship between Valeria and Victor is true. In every incarnation, from Mark Waid up to Secret Wars with Assad Ribic and Jonathan Hickman, Valeria, and even up to One World Under Doom with Ryan North and that event that's going on currently. There is this very special relationship between Valeria and her godfather that is absolutely there's just a connection that's really sweet.
I love it. I mean, Doom by Hickman and Sanford Green really had some nice stuff in there too.
There you go.
Oh yeah, that's a good example too.
I do want to say it's funny. I feel like these are like this is a Rorschach test for our own relationships with comics, because the hyper-specific Wikipedia entry hilariously, like the bag and board. I don't even know how to describe it. Are you ready for my first pick?
Please
hit it.
All right. I love when Absolute Batman gets as close to the line of being stupid and or ridiculous, but never crosses it. I will use a specific image from the 11th issue. Listeners won't be able to see this, but there's a shot of like the I forgot what it's even called, the juiced up version of Batman that's been baned up and everything like that.
Yeah.
There are so many moments in that book that are like just like riding the line of like, is this book dumb? To like maximum impact. It makes it incredibly cool instead of stupid. Like there's a line that Scott Snyder actually writes where he says Batman AF. And it works.
That is the most dad thing that Scott. I mean, he is right. Like, dude, that's kind of like I think that's sort of the superpower of Scott Snyder of the last like 5 to 7 years. Is that I've been pretty vocal about the fact that my entry into comics in the way that I am now, being that like dedicated Wednesday Warrior, was the Court of Owls storyline with him and Greg Capullo. And at that time, it was a little edgy. And even go back to like Black Mirror and American Vampire, and before that even, Scott Snyder had this like edge to him. And it feels like over there, the last like I would say recent past, he has become full dad mode where he still wants to be sort of edgy, but he's got like that. There's a little bit of like sort of charming ham to his work. And Absolute Batman is like the perfect incarnation of that.
I think too that I feel like he might have said this in my interview or one of our interview, but I have a belief that he is looking at he's writing the Batman for his kids. I think he said that before, like, hey, I'm writing, this Batman with my kids in mind, what they're going to go through and, what life might hurl at them. But I think also he's seeing how popular manga is. And manga at times can also be stupid ridiculous, some of the wildest concepts and moments. And I see a lot of that injected into Absolute Batman, where they're just going for it. They're like, we're not really tied to continuity, and this is like a fresh start. This is its own thing. So let's just go for it. And I really respect that with Absolute Batman.
Yeah. I really like that. I think he does a really good job. I also think there's like if you could turn like the best parts of 90s Image comics into like a concentrate and then like inject it into your system. That's what Absolute Batman feels like. My next pick, going back to my second pick, I love it when you see like a comic artist's handwriting or sound effects and you realize you can see their art line in it. Like a good example is like you look at any of Danny Warren Johnson's titles and you can tell that he used a brush to do it, and you can see that in his art. I love stuff like that. Daniel's a great example, but honestly, if you ever see like signatures of like artists and you look at it and you're like, I can see like Mike Allred's art line in how he signs his own name. Maybe not on checks, but maybe on comics you see it. And like, I just think that is such a cool thing. It's like, it is like their art line is an inescapable part of themselves in the same way that like handwriting is. And like, I've watched way too many movies like Zodiac where they go to handwriting experts like, you physically can't change that part of yourself. And like, that is the same thing with artists. Their art line is like their DNA. It is baked into who they are. And I just think that is cool as hell. Anyways, that's my second pick.
Yeah, I totally can see that too. And I love that sort of, again, the consistency of it too. And this isn't, I'm not saying that this exact concept is wrong, but there is something sort of fundamentally human about what you're saying here with that, seeing that art line, right? Like it can't be manufactured. You can't put that into a program and recreate that. It's impossible. Like you can do a very terrible recreation of it, but the only way that it could happen is if Daniel Warren Johnson does that. And I think that's really special and something worth preserving. Okay.
Yeah, I think really quick, I think Ryan Stegman's a hilarious example of that, because like you almost needed his perfect experiences to combine with how he does things to come up with a Stegosaurus as his signature on his art. But anyways, Chris, what's your next pick?
Okay, so I was sort of going through a couple here. So I don't know how you guys did this, a little bit inside baseball before we continue with my pick, is that I picked like 10 things, and then I was going to
like 25.
Okay.
I've got like I'm just going to stop when you tell me to say stop.
So I'm like having to pick which one I want to do based on what you guys say as well. So I'm calling a little bit of an audible here, and I want to just do a quick highlight of the modern Marvel Treasury Editions. Ooh. These things are absolutely phenomenal, and I wish they did more of them. And I'm holding up currently the Demon Days from Keith Momoko.
I love the Treasury. Is that the softback or the hardcover?
It's a soft. See, that's part of the magic of them, is that they are sort of this like in between. It's like a nice matte finish, and they've got these rounded bindings on the outside, and then again it has like a sort of soft/hard. Again, I don't know how to properly describe it, but it's a perfect way to read, because if you read a large hardcover, it's kind of tough. You're having like you're having to like reopen it hard to like open.
I'm
the
a
book
bender.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I like, break my book's spine like Bane did Batman, but I like the test, how much I can give it a little bow.
Yeah. And these they've been doing a lot of them here recently, and actually they used to do them in the 70s. That's where they first came. Again, Here's my history lesson of this thing that I picked here. But the oversized format became really popular in the early 70s for Marvel. They would basically use it as a way to reprint some, I would say not. I would say sometimes modern, but it's usually like past storylines. I even had one back in the day when I was younger. It was Fantastic Four number 21, the whole Galactus sort of reapproach from the mid 70s. It was issues 120 through 123, and they were just really cool. They were like this. They had like a bunch of back matter and a bunch of really cool, I wouldn't say interviews, but sort of just like a dialogue about the storyline that we're about to read. And it was almost like a larger formatted trade before trades were even really a thing in the 70s. So I mean, they were around, but very sparingly. But anyway, the modern sort of Treasury Edition are amazing. It's my favorite way to collect comics. Outside of maybe like that sort of Paper Girls has this like backpack edition that
the digests.
Yeah, that are really cool. I love sort of this like compact compendium, but I would say like a very close second, if not like 1B, is this Treasury oversized edition. And I have like the Demon Days one. I have both of the Tradmore, Fall Sunrise and Silver Surfer Black. They've done all of the X-Men grand designs in this edition. Doom, of course, as we said, the Sanford Green, which is one issue, by the way. They gave this one issue a freaking Treasury edition, which is so cool. Here's my one qualm, and I'll end it on this, is that Marvel, if anyone from Marvel that has any kind of influence is listening, will you please give us speaking of Daniel Warren Johnson, the Daniel Warren Johnson Beta Ray Bill Agent Star. Can we get a Treasury edition of that, please? Because that's the only one that's missing for my personal taste, I'll say.
I will say that I did a Marvel or a format power rankings recently on Sketched, and like a lot of people repped really hard for that Treasury edition. My only take was it's not used as much. Right. And so it wasn't kind of one of the ones I picked from just because it didn't fit into any of the categories I was trying to lump it in, but it is a really cool edition.
Yeah. Treasury editions are my jam. And I always kind of judge a back issue selection if they have like a specific section for magazine and Treasury size editions. And a lot of those Treasury editions is where we got the first ever, the first, Marvel DC crossover, Superman, Spider-Man, Treasury edition. And from there we got, Batman, Hulk, Treasury edition, Wonder Woman, I forgot who else she fought in that one, but Treasury editions, special place in my heart. You get bigger, you get to appreciate the art more. They make backing boards for those too. So all day.
I also have bought full on, like speaking on the new age treasuries, I've bought full on storylines that I haven't even read, like in single issues. Like I have the Alien black, white, and red. I also have the Star Wars. I think it's black, white. And
I think those titles are the best to collect in Treasury editions, like those black, white, and reds. I think there's something to be had at that size.
They're art oriented, anyways. But
right, yeah.
And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. The sins of the past don't stay buried. They always find a way of rising from the grave. In November, Oni Press is proud to present Crownsville, a 5-part series from master storyteller Rodney Barnes and phenomenal artist Elia Bonetti. Founded at the turn of the 20th century, the Crownsville Hospital was a notoriously segregated all-black psychiatric institute. After decades of overcrowding and neglect, alongside darker, more persistent rumors of patient abuse and illegal medical experiments, it was finally closed. Today, it stands condemned. But when an unexplained death inside the abandoned hospital is ruled a suicide, Detective Mike Sims and journalist Paul Blair are compelled to dig deeper, only to discover the reality of the ghosts that still walk its halls. Enter a century-spanning tale of suspense and sorrow as true crime meets shocking terror in Crownsville #1, a double-sized 48-page debut coming in November from Oni Press. And now, back to the show. All right, Badr, you're here for 2. What do you got?
All right, another very hyper-specific, and I'm going for 2, right? Because I'm the third one.
You got 2.
Bet. Okay, this one is maybe a inside one. Also satisfying. The satisfying sound of the CLZ app when you scan the cover.
Oh, okay.
All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and do a live performance, and hopefully I don't mess this up.
I haven't ever heard this before either.
Okay. Let me see if it'll pick up.
God, I hope it picks it up.
All right. Hold on. There you go. Turn my ringer on. Here we go. So when you scan a comic on CLZ, all right, It'll do that, and then when I confirm that I want to add it to my collection, it should do the sound effect. It did not do the sound effect.
Dang it.
Wait. Oh, maybe it's a barcode. All right, let me try it one more time.
Oh, it's like a Kim Possible type of sound effect.
Sounds like money. All right, that's what it sounds like. So yeah, it's the barcode scan. I apologize. On the CLZ app, you can scan the barcode and it makes that sound effect. When I did this exercise of cataloging my entire back issue collection last year, which took months, that was the saving grace, was scanning every barcode to get that satisfying little cash register sound. There's something so oddly satisfying when it pulls up the correct comic and you're like, add to collection. A little piggyback off of that, now they also have this cover scanner, which I think the League of like a lot of different services now offer like the cover scan, which I think is mind-blowing. That might be like one of my favorite, technological advances for the comic collector out there, is the ability to scan, take a picture of a cover and it, adds it to your collection. Mwah, chef's kiss. So that's one of my specific ones.
Badr, real quick, can I build off that for a quick second? Because I collect a ton of comics and a ton of movies. CLZ, shout out to CLZ. Firstly, they have an incredible product with their app, on both of them. Because I think they have one for movies, possibly records, comics, and then I want to say regular like prose novel, just your typical book. We'll say
they got it cornered for the hyper collector hoarders,
right? and I can't tell you how many times I've been at like a buy sell trade or some type of like half price books or a comic store, whatever. And I am like, oh my gosh, hey, look, it's Electra it's Electra Assassin, Frank Miller. Like I wonder if I have this in trade, and I just go quick, right to my little CLZ app, and I got it, and it's a lifesaver every time. That way, I'm not buying 3 versions of the same story.
I just buy 3 versions of the same story.
It's a journey.
Money bags over there.
That's right.
Okay, and then my I guess second or third pick now. Since we're on the topic of formats. I'm going to go ahead and say Wednesday Comics. All right. I know this is a throwback, but Wednesday Comics, when we're talking about unique approaches to comic book formats and collected editions and things like that, I'm still mind blown that Wednesday Comics has never been, at least as far as I know, the attempt has never been reduplicated, even though. No. Yeah, and I guess for those that aren't familiar, Wednesday Comics was a line of DC Comics, I think from, I forget what year it was.
Wednesday Comics was just one, I think it was 2006. I should know this because I actually wrote a retrospective where I talked to everybody who worked on it. But it was like I think it was like 2006, and it was like each issue was a newspaper that had like them collected as comic strips in there. That was 12 continuing stories that all fed into a eventual collection.
And some of the like biggest creators, like most talented creators ever. I'm looking at this listing for this hardcover they recently put out, which is 11 by 17, so like poster sized, I guess newspaper sized book here. But Brian Azzarello, Edward Riso, Commandi by Dave Gibbons. You had Hawkman by Kyle Baker, Metal Men by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. And I mean, the list goes on. I think even how Paul Pope did Adam Strange.
I was about to say, my favorite story in that entire thing is the Paul Pope Adam Strange story.
I was actually working at the comic shop when these came out. So every week, you'd get that newspaper comic book, and then for them to collect it. I mean, it's one of my favorite initiatives. I don't know what you want to call it, formats that they ever did, and I still speak highly about it. And I think I brought it up and added it to this list because I was at my local comic shop, and my the shop owner had never heard of Wednesday Comics, and I went on this whole spiel. It was before he owned the shop, but Wednesday Comics, man, I would love to see them maybe do like a follow-up or make this a more recurring thing. It blows my mind that it has not been duplicated since. Maybe it wasn't I mean, Dave, you could tell me. I mean, was it like a big hit? Did they not feel like it was a...
I think it did well enough. I think it's just like such an intense production to do it. It basically required Mark Chiarello to will it into existence. And then on top of it, they're not really oriented on making newspapers. So it was like such a curveball. I think like every person at DC wants to do another one though. And it's just like, can you rationalize doing it? I hope so someday. Because I have the collection up here and then all the issues over there.
I think one of my biggest regrets is selling all of the individual issues. I don't have those. I don't know what happened to them. But the Treasury or the poster size collection is so phenomenal.
Mine are so yellow now.
I know this like era I think sometimes gets poo-pooed on of like I would say like specifically comics, but like specifically DC from like I would say like 2007 to like 2015, like the New 52 era of DC Comics where people like look at it sometimes in a bad light, but there were some really cool, innovative ideas coming out of like the Dan DiDio type of editor-in-chief era of DC Comics, where like I'm talking again, Wednesday Comics is a good example of this, but also like I think New 52, like as a concept, I think is really interesting, and like I have good feelings about it. And then also like Solo, remember that anthology from back in that time frame?
That's also a Chiarella one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think that like that kind of stuff is really innovative, and I think it was probably really tough on the creators. And I think though when you look back on it, like with with new eyes, I guess, or sort of I guess even nostalgic eyes, these things mean so much to you. I like when I show people my library, one of the first books that I pull out of like this is a really cool artifact from that era is like again Solo. Like Solo is one of those great sort of just like a compendium of just like the greatest voices of all time, all in one book. Just incredible stuff.
I mean, I think the thing that those are like really amazing about is the fact that they are very artist centric, and I think that that's a really important thing. But Chris, what is your next pick?
Okay, here we go. Ultra specific. The 10 p.m. or later walk from San Diego Comic-Con, or I would say San Diego Convention Center, back to your hotel. There is this walk that some people have taken, again, if you've been to San Diego Comic-Con, and I have a sort of a little bit of a spiel on this. I'll just go into that so that way it better sort of illustrates what I'm talking about here. So, growing up in the Midwest, I'm from Indiana, and sort of the height of like MCU hype, as a young person coming out of that first week of July, San Diego Comic-Con was this sort of beacon that I never thought I would ever get to as a comic fan. I sort of the queuing up of getting tickets and the cost of it all. And again, the plane, everything just San Diego I thought this was like this idea of going to San Diego was never going to happen for me. And then, you fast forward to like 2018, this is sort of a shameless brag. I eventually get on with the team of Comic Sketch Art and I'm working for them. And I've been going to San Diego Comic-Con every year since 2018. And it's my new favorite. Every new year of San Diego is my favorite convention of all time. I tell people that all the time, that whatever the newest San Diego Comic-Con is, that is my favorite convention I've ever been to. And it's part of that reason is sort of the size of it and the folks you get to see while you're there. And I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And Badr, I know you haven't been to San Diego Comic-Con yet. I hope that you eventually get there, hopefully in 2026. That'd be ideal. Yeah. But San Diego Comic-Con is just this magical place. It's as magical as everyone says it is. Every new year, just the best. And if I'm going to be, again, more specific here, there's this moment every single year. I've had it every single year since 2018 where I end up, going to the Eisners, or I end up at some kind of other late night event there at San Diego, and I have to walk back to my hotel. And there's this like abundance of main character energy I get while I'm walking back, there's this one straight line from the convention center where, and you're getting like this gaggle of Tinas from Bob's Burgers walking past you, and you got the gas lamp sort of noise and lights coming from your right, and it's 71 degrees and it's beautiful outside, and it's my social battery is drained at this point too after a long day of going to a convention and just having your personality right in the front of your face, and you just sort of get to disassociate for a moment as you're walking back to your hotel. It's really special to me, and I almost like get emotional thinking about it, and I get emotional when it's happening to me every year, where I'm like thinking, wow, I can't believe I'm actually here, and I'm really romanticizing San Diego Comic-Con, everybody, but it truly is like it's very magical. So 10 p.m. walk back to my hotel from San Diego Comic-Con.
It's a much better walk than the 10 p.m. walk back from the Javits Center in New York Comic-Con. I'm not gonna lie. I love New York, but it's just like sometimes I'm like, why is everything so far away here?
That's right.
All right, Badr, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, one, I haven't been to San Diego, so I don't know that walk. So I'm living vicariously through Chris's very detailed. I could have closed my eyes and just imagined myself walking by the Tinas.
They're just
a parade of them.
They're just twerking the entire time as you walk by.
That's
all right. My next pick is, I think, actually kind of born from something that Chris recommended to me, or it might have been Badr. I'm not sure. It would fit both of you, but I think it was Chris. But anyways, I really love a silent montage, preferably with recurring imagery throughout it. And that's kind of born from recently reading Frieren Beyond Journey's End's first volume, where Frieren herself is questing, and we get these repeated looks at a passage of time as she like does her thing, and it's just like these like silent panels where she's just walking and doing stuff. And like one of my favorite ones is she often gets tricked by a mimic disguised as a treasure chest because she just wants like rich shit all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I love a good silent montage that just shows journeys and shows stuff like that. The thing that's funny about Frieren is it's always like 25 years or something like that, where it's just like her doing stuff and looking exactly the same because she doesn't really age. And it's a very, very charming thing. And not a lot of books do it because most single issue books don't have the space to do it. I find that graphic novels, particularly like YA ones and like manga, do it a lot more. But I think that's part of the reason why I like that change of pace flavor for original graphic novels and manga is it kind of gives you that slightly different feel to it that I don't know. I just love it. It's really great. It kind of speaks to the value system and the space you get with it. And big fan.
You two are much bigger manga fans than I am. At least I think you guys know a lot more, at least. But I will say Frieren specifically is my sort of, I would say, taster into liking manga. Like I will say outside of like reading, Dragon Ball Z or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, like the normal like franchises that a lot of people grew up around our time probably will try out when they try out manga. But Frieren was the first series that I just like went to Barnes and Noble randomly one day. I was there for something else, and I just went over to the incredible manga section that they have there, and Frieren just sort of popped out at me from the shelf, and I picked it up and was immediately obsessed with it. Immediately became one of my favorite books that I currently have on my shelf. And so anybody heed both mine and David's advice here. If you've not read Frieren, it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, Badr and I did a podcast about manga, and it was a really good time. But I mean, like that's the funny thing though is like you get the right. I mean, I guess it's the same thing for any comic, but you get the right volume of any comic, and next thing you know, the move you follow finishing the first volume is buying 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. Dude. It's a curse and a blessing.
Yeah. The rabbit hole for a manga that you end up liking is very deep. It's like it starts off shallow and then it's immediately the bottom of the abyss, like the bottom, like 6,000 leagues underneath the sea, whatever that is.
That's why I'm like terrified of picking up the first volume of like Berserk or like One Piece because I know it's like, God. Oh shit, my life's over.
That's how I've been recently with the Dark Horse H.P. Lovecraft retellings, and I'm spacing the name of the artist, but he's done a lot of them.
I.N.J. Colbert?
No,
you're talking about the manga adaptations, and they are stupid good. Those covers are awesome. The design looks good. I haven't read any of them, but
Gu Tanabe is the artist writer, and he's done 4 or 5 of them, and I think I got the first one, which was maybe Mountains of Madness, perhaps, and now I just collect all the hardcovers. I've been searching for all the hardcovers since then.
That's awesome. All right, my next pick is another really specific thing from specific comic. Actually, there's so many comics that do this. I'm going to give several examples, but I love a series of panels where pretty much everything stays the same besides one thing. A very famous example of that is Invincible, where it's like the comic creator, there's like sometimes they like don't draw new drawings. Yeah, isn't that lazy? It's like do no. Another really good one recently was it's just 2 panels, but in Transformers 24, Starscream is exactly the same in both drawings, except for his hand goes up to wave. And it is like this shockingly emotional moment just because of this wave. But there's like so many awesome moments that do that really well. One of my favorites ever is from Nick Klein and Ivan Brandon's Drifter, if you ever want to have a really good one. The funny thing is in that one, the only thing that stays the same is the camera stays the same. It's pointed at the same place, but a character walks in and out of it. And it's this amazing visual choice by Nick Klein. Is it like some people might say it's like lazy as they do in Invincible? I think it's just awesome comic storytelling, and I think it's a really good example of what you can do in comics that you really can't do in other mediums.
It's showcasing the aspect of time in like this format, where it's like the artist. Sometimes I say like the artist is like the camera guy, right? Like he's putting you where it needs to be. And whenever they do that, it is it's a nice little break too, right? Or it's like, oh, even I need to take maybe a minute to like, catch my breath and like really take in the moment. I love any time they do that. It's such a great example of like the power of time. Just, I don't know, this is like weird comic book time. Like time doesn't really work the same in comic books like it does in the real world.
Yeah. I don't know if the listeners are keeping track too, but David, that's 2 panel specific things in a row there. So that's pretty, I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. I'm all my stuff is like super in the weeds creative stuff. So we haven't reached the bottom of that rabbit hole yet.
Oh,
but
man.
Chris, what's your next pick?
Well, to speak on what we're talking about here with the paneling, and some people might call it lazy. I don't think it's lazy. I think it's interesting storytelling, and it's taking advantage of the medium and what it can do really well. And, this actually ties into my next specific thing. When I had Brian K. Vaughan on the show, he said Fiona Staples is so great because she's a great actor. She can express what characters are thinking and all these things. Like he doesn't even really tell her what the characters are thinking in his script. She just sort of anticipates that. And a lot of that emotion you see on their face and the way that they're sort of moving within the panel is all on her. And my specific thing that I have next is that Brian K. Vaughan constantly says that he is not a novelist when he's explaining why he loves collaborating in comics. Now, David, he said it on your show. I don't know if you remember this or not. He has said it on my show. I went to go see a panel with him at San Diego Comic-Con a couple of weeks ago, and he said it there too. I keep clicking it every time that he says it. And what it says to me is that, and I think to better explain this, he says, I'm not a novelist. I love making comics. And I think what he's trying to say is that the collaboration of comics is really special.
Yeah.
And, outside of him overusing that term, I just really love that idea that like collaboration, this venture within comics, you can do it in movies and you can do it in television. You can do it in a lot of other great mediums, but there's something special about when you bring together this incredibly talented group of criminally underpaid creative freaks, put them into a group chat together and say, hey, make this thing. They can make a shit tie-in from one of the big two into this really incredible book, and they can make like a halfway decent script into like an Eisner winner. So I just really love the idea. I think it sort of builds on this idea that, again, it's Brian saying it, who's my favorite creator in comics, but I think it sort of illustrates this really cool idea of like collaboration in comics. So
it's kind of like how collaborators change the work.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can be hyper specific. We're talking about this idea of being hyper specific, but I think in comics, if you trust your collaborators in a very specific way, you will let them go crazy. And I think that makes a lot of times the story better.
Yeah. I think that idea of trust I think it's an underrated aspect to the collaboration process, that, the unspoken trust between two creators, right? Like a writer trusting that an artist is going to bring this idea to life and vice versa. And then also thinking about how, like, once that thing is out in the universe, it is that thing. Like you're talking about Brian K. Vaughan. Like, can you imagine anyone else doing Saga other than Fiona Staples? I think there's something really, I don't know, I can get like really poetic about it, but there's something very beautiful about like what they created is the thing, and there is no way for them to recreate that. I think no other artist could do it justice, or writer could do it justice than those two. Well, the whole entire team, but there's something crazy about this collaborative thing producing this such a unique, this unique piece of artwork that cannot be duplicated.
Mm-hmm. And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. What does IDW have waiting for readers in comic shops this October? An amazing slate of new comic series, that's what. Can I interest you in a new title from Godzilla's Kaisei era, Starship Godzilla, which is written by the Sketched Awards winner Chris Gooch and has been described as Cowboy Bebop meets Guardians of the Galaxy? Or what about Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which spins out of the Paramount Plus animated series and finds Godzilla's skate or die artist Louis Joyce taking his talents to the Turtles? There are even a couple glorious returns as odd-panel veteran Rodney Barnes brings the vampires back to Alaska in 30 Days of Night, Falling Sun, and the Tim Burton classic starring Ichabod Crane continues in Return to Sleepy Hollow from Casey Gilley and Savannah Mayer. Are you looking for fun, action, horror, suspense, and above all, good comics? You'll find them from IDW at comic shops everywhere this October. And now, back to the show. All right, Badr, what do you got for your next two?
Okay.
You're up for the turn.
Okay. So I have given us two hyper-specific things about comic collecting and then a formatting. I'm going to take us to the comic shop. And my next hyper-specific thing is these sun-bleached posters hanging up in comic shop windows.
It's for like Original Sin from the early 2000s.
And an added bonus, if you get those posters for free at your local comic shop, like mine does, I just feel like you can't beat a good, worn-in, used shop poster that's been hung up on a comic shop and has been there for months, if not years. It's yellow, it's faded, the corner, it's like, it's brittle even at sometimes. And when you get those things for free, I love them. I have a whole short box. And by the way, those BCW Silver Age and even Modern Age bags and boards will hold one of the. I have like a short box full of comic shop posters that are comic posters I've gotten from shops throughout the years. And I don't know, there's just something about like just seeing the life that they've had, that they've just been hung up and promotional. And sometimes, obviously the art is amazing. One specifically that comes to mind, I think we did like a trip in Canada, maybe? I forgot where we were at. And on the topic of Saga, I found an old school, like, not old school, but I found this Saga promo poster that I have never seen. And some of those images are so fascinating. And I don't think that, they collect them all the time in books. But yeah, something about the good sun-bleached comic poster hanging up at your comic shop.
I love it. That's so amazing.
If I could just sort of quick additive to that, because I love that. But also like the old statues from like the 80s and 90s, like the Bowens. The Bowens from back in the day.
I love those.
Yeah. Speaking of Brad and Lisa from Couples Counseling, he and I had this inside joke that every time that I see the Gog statue, the Bowen Gog from Kingdom Come, he's one of the bad guys from that storyline, or at least one of the sides, maybe Earth X. I can't remember exactly where. It's an Alex Ross creation. But there's this statue of Gog that I see I go to the random comic store in Iowa and there's a Gog there. It's just, it's always there at every comic store. And I always send them a picture every time I see it at like a random comic shop.
That's amazing.
I feel like the Bowen statue is the sign that you're in a good shop.
Yes.
That they're going to have legit back issues. They probably haven't stocked a current comic book in years. And these books are definitely not organized. I could just tell when I see the Bowen statue. I don't know what it is, but I'm telling you, when you see a Bowen statue or a collection of the boxes somewhere, do some digging. You'll find some good stuff.
That's right.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and now shift gears and highlight a creator here for my next specific thing, which is Mark Waid's knack for continuity.
Oh, yeah.
I think, because right now he is, aside from writing Batman and Robin and what's the other big one?
Batman
World's Finest.
Thank you, World's Finest.
Yeah.
But he's currently doing the history of the DC universe.
The new history of the DC universe.
Thank you. The new history. Coming off of it's been like 2-3 years since he did the Marvel one with Javier Rodriguez, which was phenomenal.
And has a Treasury Edition.
And a Treasury Edition. Damn right, Chris. Yeah, I've got that one. Those are the type of books I like buying Treasury Editions because they make for good, the art is fantastic and they're good references. But I respect that Mark Waid is like this bastion for superhero comics, but also continuity. And I feel like continuity is something that I feel like it's kind of become like loosey-goosey with like, especially like the big two, where continuity has always been kind of important. I don't know if they've put as much emphasis on that anymore with like the constant renumbers and the, series not going on for as long. There's not a lot of opportunity to build very deep continuity, but I respect that Mark Waid, like he just puts so much respect on this genre of superheroes and continuity and doing the difficult. I would love to just see what his like outline or notes look like for something like the new history of the DC universe. Like that's the guy you call. And I love that every creator that I've ever heard talk about Mark Waid talks about him in that light. Like, that's the guy. I think when I had a chance to interview Christopher Priest, and he had so much love for Mark Waid. He was like, I called him like, all right, I'm writing Superman. Like, what's the continuity here and there? There's something cool about Mark Waid just having this profound knowledge of superhero continuity.
Mm-hmm. Big two continuity, I think, should be written in pencil, not permanent marker, right?
Yeah,
like
I agree.
The moment that you start relying on it too heavily, and fans will be like, "Oh my God, Batman would never do that." Here's the thing: he would, because the writer made him do it. So
yeah,
it's one of those things that like continuity is so fun when you understand the inside baseball and it works for the story. But story is king, right? That's where we should be going to. And I think, again, to build off what you said, Badr, no one does it better than Mark Waid in terms of like telling a story and playing with continuity in that sort of like playful wink and nod, hitting you in the shoulder type of way. Yeah. It's really special.
I think the new history of the DC universe and the Marvel, I forgot what the Marvel one was called, the history of the Marvel universe, I think it was. I think the thing that he did really well about that is like he was building connective tissue through existing facts, but he also wasn't saying like this is the end all be all, because it changes all the time. I mean, there's and he's done that twice, because he also did Hyper Time in the 90s with Grant Morrison, which is pretty amazing. But and
to really quick, and to write it in a way where it's where it's more like a prose approach.
It's fun to
it.
read.
Yeah, thank you so much. Rather than like, hey, here's some, facts and bullet points, because it could have just been that. But for them to take the approach of like actually laying it out like sequentially, I think is a really nice touch.
Well, and what's tough about continuity, right? It's because it's hard to find and it's hard to work in, and it's not always digestible. That's Mark Waid's secret power, is that he makes continuity digestible. So, my turn.
Yep, go for it.
All right, here we go. So this one, I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on this one here, but I'm going to bring up the Gem Mint 10 CGC pens that they've been releasing here at Comic-Con, and the many variants that they have been releasing along with them. So I'm going to show it.
No idea what this is.
This is new to me.
All right, so here I'm holding it up for the camera here. I have the Deadpool and Wolverine one from a couple years ago, and then I have this. It's I think a Wolverine one from last year. Anyway, here's sort of the process: is that when you go to these bigger conventions, I'm thinking of like New York and San Diego. When you turn in a book to CGC, you'll get this little blind bag. You have to ask for it. They don't advertise it. You have to ask for this little blind bag. They'll give it to you, and then you get a random pen. And it's like, again, it's just like CGC. It's 0.5 through 10. And a lot of times, just like in comics, the Gem Mint 10, which are extremely rare for people who don't like to grade comics. I'm not even I'm sort of of two minds about it. That's a whole nother conversation. Point being is that the 10 is the most rare version, and they usually have like these theme ones. So for instance, I have the BFF, again, Deadpool Wolverine one from New York Comic-Con 2024. I have the Abominable Toys Godzilla X Chomp San Diego Comic-Con 2024 version. I have the Whatnot New York Comic-Con 2024 that you had to get at the Whatnot Hero House that was outside of the convention center. Again, I also have the Distillery one from 2025 from this year at San Diego Comic-Con. So they make it's sort of like, it's a fun way to do collectibles because they don't advertise it. They don't make it, they're not like valuable really, but you kind of have to be in the know to know that it's a thing. And it's just like a fun sort of Easter egg. And a lot of times they'll make, CGC will make it fun where they'll have like an Easter egg, like an actual like gold Easter egg throughout the convention center. And then they'll post it on their story. And if you find, I think it's like 3 or 4 of them, you find that Easter egg, you take it back to the booth, they will give you a very, very special Gem Mint 10 that like you found the Easter egg pen. So anyway, like I said, they're really fun. Look them up if you want to, know any more about them. But I really love them when I go to cons going forward.
I think I might take the cake for like hyper specific. That is hella hyper specific, Chris. I'm so scratching my head.
We're like, what is this?
We're talking about enamel.
All right, I'm here for 2. This is maybe the most hyper-specific thing from any book, and it doesn't even happen that often. I just love it so much. I love panels or pages that are used to highlight the inventory somebody has on them. A good example of that is in Scott Pilgrim when he like opens his pockets and he just has a bunch of garbage in there.
Yeah.
I love things like that. Another really good one is in Prophet 21 where Simon Roy visualizes John Prophet's inventory. Yeah. Is it a good way for you to use the 20 pages you have available to you? Probably not, but it's like this thing that just adds a little bit of spice and tastiness to it. It reminds me of like RPGs, and I grew up playing like Final Fantasy and stuff, and I'm like, ooh, I gotta check out this person's inventory. It appears this person only has trash in their pocket. I love that, and I just love it when it's visualized like that. It's a fun little thing. If it was in every comic, would I love it? Probably not, but the fact that it's kind of rare is really fun.
Yeah, it's like the Wilhelm scream, like in movies.
Oh yeah,
when used correctly, it is so funny and so great, and like it always gets a chuckle. But yeah, if it's used too much, it can be kind of a little maybe possibly annoying.
All right, my next pick. This is probably the most common thing that I have picked. It's gonna tie into the Secret Wars 2015. It is the fist pump page turn, like in Secret Wars 2015 when things are falling apart for Doom, and the final panel on a page shows his face and someone off panel yelling "Victor!" And when you turn the page, it's Black Panther and Namor coming through the Siege Perilous. This is where he says the victor, and it's his face looking aghast. He's very upset about what's going on, and it's them coming through.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Siege Perilous. You got Black Panther. He's got the Infinity Gauntlet on, and he's like, your reign is over, and it ends with us, which is a total lie, but you don't know that yet. It's just like this cool moment. When you can have like a moment where it like you turn the page and it's just like, yes, this rules.
The reveal, man.
Yeah. The reveal. Yeah. Like I think page turns are such a spectacular tool in comics, and there's so many different things you can do with them. You can make them funny, you can make them scary, you can do all that stuff. My favorite flavor is the fist pump page turn. Secret Wars does it in like every issue.
Yeah.
It is like, It's amazing pacing.
I'm going to claim this live here on Off Panel, everybody. Secret Wars by Jonathan Hickman, and I think am I saying this right? Asad Ribic. I say Ribic, but anyway. Point being, greatest event comic of all time.
I
don't even know if it's close for me.
Like, they're still chasing that high.
It is so incredible. It does all the right. It plays all the right notes with all of Hickman's different runs with Avengers and Fantastic Four and everything, New Avengers, and then also it kills the Ultimate Universe, and all of it is so it's so great. And honestly, you don't even really have to know all that. Like, you can totally read it by itself and maybe have a little bit of context of the Time Runs Out storyline. If you know a little bit about what Molecule Man and Victor is doing and what the Fantastic Four are doing at that time, that all helps. But you could totally read it by itself and just know Doom is a god and he's doing some crazy shit. Like, that's all you really need to know. So.
Yeah. Really quick, on the topic of the page turn reveal, I think it's much like your previous pick with the inventory. It's got to be done tastefully. It's got to be done with like there's got to be some thought behind it, because I think you can easily get into where every single page flip is like some sort of arbitrary page turn. I like it when it's done tastefully and has like some impact, because you can quickly lose that impact if every single page is a splash page turn.
Yep. All right, I'm going to be very, very quick with my next one here. I'm going to try to, because this is one of my more long-winded ones, but I'm going to condense it here. So the original printing of Alan Moore and Steve Bissette's Saga of Swamp Thing trade paperback. One of my favorite things in the world. It's one of my favorite books on the shelf. So a little background here. Back in 1987, trade paperbacks obviously still very much a new thing. 1986, Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns completely changes that, along with Moore and Gibbons' Watchmen. Both of those stories together blew up the trade paperback collected format. Quick sidebar, the feud between Alan Moore and DC Comics started because Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons wanted the rights back to Watchmen, and DC said, okay, we'll give them back to you the moment that this book goes out of print. Guess what? Never been out of print, everybody. Watchmen has gotten a new printing every year since 1986, and it's bullshit. DC, if you're listening, that's kind of shitty.
Yeah, it's mad. But at the same time, all right, playing devil's advocate, I do find it interesting every year where I'm like, what are they going to include in this version? To like, it's always kind of interesting.
Basically, again, there are multiple printings of Saga of Swamp Thing too. I'm going to try to share my screen here so you guys can see what's going on here.
Who's more petty, DC over the Watchmen printing, or Dr. Doom nicknamed Villain?
Probably Dr. Doom.
That's right. Yeah, probably. But what I have in my hands here, this is the original Vertigo 1987 version. There was a second printing that came out through Warner Books, also from 1987. There's a third printing that was only given out to retailers on a preview night at a Comic-Con back in 91. And then there's a fourth printing of the hardcovers. This is probably the one that most people see at different comic stores and such. That is the hardcover of that run of Saga of Swamp Thing. And then there's these new absolute versions. There's 3 of them that DC put out here recently. And here's the last thing I'll say about it. And this is why I'm talking about this, is that in this original trade, I'll say in the first 3 versions, actually maybe in the 4th version as well, basically all the way up to the absolutes that were put out in 2020 of Saga of Swamp Thing, they have these incredible, just original pages of the 3-color process. It looks like it came right out of the single issues from the 80s. Unfortunately, and I'm not going to pull out my absolute right now, but if you guys have those absolutes, and they're a beautiful package on the outside, and they have these nice velvet like the actual book itself is sort of like almost velvety. Like it's velvet. It's really incredible stuff, and like the presentation is incredible. But if you open the book, I'm going to open it up. I just lied here. I'm going to open it up really quick. It's digitally recolored. It's so terrible, everybody. It's DC. What are you doing here, man? So bad. Like, if you're going to read Saga of Swamp Thing, and I highly recommend it because it's my favorite run of all time. It's like that and the Question run by Dennis O'Neil and Dennis Cohen. Saga of Swamp Thing, I read it every year. It's absolutely incredible. I see something new every single time I read it. Do not buy the absolute hardcovers. Buy one of the original trades from like the 80s and the early 90s. That's into spiel.
Yeah, love it. Chris is, I would absolutely have Chris on my team. I wish I met Chris in college and had him on all my team projects, because Chris has brought
devil in the detail,
props. Baby. He shared screens. I mean, he came super prepared. I do want to say on the topic of that, of the 80s trade, Chris was kind enough to send me, I think, like the first volume of Swamp Thing, and it was like the original 80s trade.
I sent you the Warner Books one.
Thank you.
Second printing.
I think DC's original graphic novels from the 80s are some of the best graphic novels, like especially trade paperbacks are some of the best, period. From the paper quality, the amount of books they collected, the overall design. I recently saw I was gifted Batman Year One, and it was like the original DC 80s, I think hardcover or trade. And it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. And it gets the job done. And obviously super cheap too.
Yeah, I want to say really quickly before we move on, the first printing that I'm talking about here, everybody, is the Michael Zulli, R.I.P. to him. He just passed away not too long ago, but it's the image of Alec basically in a swamp, and he's got rose shrubs as hands, and he's got a bird on his shoulder. It's that cover. And actually, speaking of comic book posters that retailers get for free, I bought. They put out a post when they put out this trade. They sent comic stores a foldable poster of this Mike Zulli painting, and I have it hanging up in my dining room, and it's one of my favorite talking pieces when people come over to the house. I'm like, Saga Swamp Thing, you got to read it, man. It's amazing.
I'm definitely going on eBay probably while we're talking to look this up. I need one of those for sure. That's good.
All right, Badr, close out your 2 picks.
Oh, here we go. Oh my God. Here I am thinking I wasn't going to have enough picks, and I'm like, can we actually record a 3-hour pod or a Patreon bonus? Because I have so many. But okay. If I have to dwindle this list down to 2, I think I've got some 2 strong ones. All right, my first one, I'm going to take us to digital world. All right, my hyper-specific thing is same-day image comic digital releases on Hoopla. I feel like it is. I feel like it's illegal. It should be illegal that I can read the newest image comic that hits stands, whatever, on New Comic Book Day on Hoopla the same day. Now, granted, the limitation is depending on what your local library is and what their setup and agreement with Hoopla is. You might only have 6 rentals, and that one single issue counts as one rental. So that is the limitation there. And obviously, you guys know the rentals re-up every month, so you got to wait a whole month if you're trying to like check out every image. But to me, it is mind-blowing that you can read brand new image comics the day of release. I had a chance to interview someone from Hoopla, and I told her, are you sure this is not illegal? And she assured me they just have a really good relationship with Image. So Hoopla, once again, more reasons to love Hoopla.
Go ahead, David. Sorry.
I have a propaganda piece going up about Hoopla this week, and one of the points is you can actually read brand new comics that came out that week on there from Image. Which is amazing.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Badr, you have been one of the biggest mouthpieces for Hoopla, and it is because it's an incredible avenue for people to read comics digitally. And in a landscape where like it's basically global comics and I guess a version like a bastardized version of Comixology, and then like the rest. Hoopla is, I think, the best.
That is literally the title of my article. Is Hoopla is the best digital comics app.
Bam.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
I want cred on that post, David. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
And I do feel like I got to add this caveat because, it almost sounds like too good to be true. And I guess I do want to add the caveat of like, if you are in a position to support your local library, whether that be, attending an event, even signing up for a library card, anyway, like support your local library because it's not free to them. I ended up learning in my research Hoopla can be very expensive for for public libraries. So won't spoil that. David, I look forward to that article. All right, and then my last hyper-specific thing, and this one was inspired by, David, your a couple of your manga picks, but that inventory one in particular. I love when they add the recipe in the comic book. When they make a food reference in a comic book and they give you the recipe at the end, one of my favorite things. For the most part, 9 times out of 10 will try cooking them. And a very recent example of this is I'm reading this manga called Dragon Drifters. I think that's the name of it. And it is about dragon hunters, people that hunt down dragons. And there's one character in particular who is all about cooking dragon meals, like meals from dragon meat and bones and all of that. So he's always making like food references like, oh, I can't wait to make dragon stew tonight. And at the end of every chapter in the manga, the author will list out the recipe. And when I tell you it's like a legit recipe, you're like, all right, well, clearly I'm going to swap out the dragon part with like steak or chicken or something. But it's like, oh, wow. So, okay, hit it with a dash of rosemary, make sure to broil it for a minute to get that char. And I mean, it's not, exclusive to just manga. I feel like I've seen it I think Kyle Starks might have did something,
Rare
right?
Flavors did it recently with Ron V.
Yeah, Rare Flavors. That's
Felipe
a good
Andrade.
one.
Yeah.
Yes. So anytime that they add a recipe in a comic book, I'm here for it. That's hyperspecific.
I love that pick. That's amazing.
All right.
Chris,
last one here. Quick highlight of a character that I don't think gets enough love because he's crazy. All right. Pre-crisis. It's Batman, everybody. Bruce Wayne. Have you heard of him? No, it's pre-crisis Comet the Super Horse. All right.
Yes.
He's been the love interest, get this, of both Supergirl and Lois Lane. So he's really going after Clark and his integrity with this one. But first appearing in Adventure Comics 293 from 1962. I'll give you the long and short of it without being super long-winded. But basically, he is this centaur, Byron, who is basically in love with the sorceress Circe. She basically gives him this serum that makes him into a centaur, but then this person they're fighting, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, is a character named Maldor, switches the vials and turns him into a half horse or full horse or a person, depending on, I think, a comet going by or something. It basically messes up completely. Anyway, he gets shipped off to Earth and he shows up randomly in a Supergirl comic in the 60s. And then eventually, while he's a human during a comet storm, he ends up dating Kara Zor-El at one point, and then later on, he eventually hooks up with Lois Lane in her series, which was at the time It's from the 60s.
Comics are crazy.
The Silver Age, everybody, was freaking wild. The 60s, he has a 60s title named Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane, specifically issue 92 from 1969. He ends up dating Lois Lane, and she ends up turning into a centaur in that issue as well. So anyway, and we recently saw him in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow by Bilquis Evely and Tom King. He is one of the saviors, I guess, towards the end of the series. Really great Silver Age random character that I think needs more love.
My final thing actually does bring us back to Batman, which is hilarious. I open and close. I got bookends of Batman. I love big double page spread title pages, like in Batman #1, where you do things like that. Yeah. Oh my God. So cool. Whenever that happens, it's just like, it's like a vibe. Yeah. It's like, it just says like, this book is like different and important. And there's something about it that I just love. And it's kind of ineffable and imperceptible, but it rules. It's always cool.
My recent favorite of that is Tyler Crook's Lonesome Hunters over at Dark Horse.
Oh, yeah.
Every single issue opens with like a double page. Like, I'm assuming, I don't know this for a fact, but it's probably like a huge painting at his house. But it's this incredible double page spread where he includes the text of the Lonesome Hunters somewhere in the background, sort of like in like a camouflaged way.
Yeah. David, I was reading that Batman issue last night and I actually stopped at that same part as well, just admiring like the creative choice. And when you see like them play around with those title pages, I think it just highlights how much good design is in comics and the I mean, I don't know who to credit on that part, right? Like, would you credit
Jorge Jimenez? Yeah.
Yeah, or is it the letterer? I mean, how much of that is the letterer's choice or input? I don't know. Once again, I think it goes back to that collaborative process. But I think when you see moments like that, I feel like comic books now, I just feel like they have never been better designed. I can't phrase it right, but the design in comics, the graphic, the element and the eye for design is on display when you see stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Now it's time to decide who won the fantasy draft of hyper-specific things. Instead of us trying to decide which of our amazing lists won, I'm going to bring in a couple of guests to decide.
Oh, guests.
So here's a welcome to a dual podcasters turned writers in Ethan S. Parker and Griffin Sheridan, whose work you can currently find on Godzilla, Escape the Dead Zone at IDW.
Oh, word.
Marvel Zombies, Red Band at Marvel, and Blink and You'll Miss It at Boom Studios. It's Ethan S. Parker and Griffin Sheridan. Thank you for coming on to be the commissioners of our fake fantasy league, guys.
Oh, hello.
Eisner nominated. Did we mention that? Eisner nominated creative team?
So we need you guys.
Surprise, boys.
They actually didn't know. I never told them. And I didn't even tell them there was going to be two of them. So this will be interesting in dictating out who's the winner, given the fact if you guys split your votes, it's going to be really awkward. So I'm going to recap our list really quick. And to reduce bias in one direction or the other, I'm going to number the lists instead of name them. I need you to choose the list of hyper-specific comic things you enjoy the most. I want you guys to know that this got pretty weird. So you're going to be really surprised by some of the directions we go in. All right, so I'm going to start with number 1. We have Doom and Valeria's relationship. Marvel Treasury Editions, like the big ones, like the big glorious collections with big art. Post 10 p.m. San Diego Comic-Con walk. how collaborators change the work in interesting and subtle ways. Gem Mint CGC pins that they're apparently a rare collectible. I'm revealing the fact that I didn't do this one. But it has like the Gem Mint 10 on there, and it's like an enamel pin. The original printing, not those terrible other printings of Alan Moore and Steve Bissett's Saga of the Swamp Thing. Better coloring, just better back batter, all this great stuff. And pre-crisis Comet the Super Horse, not that current nonsense we're getting now, which is very rare because we don't get a lot of Comet the Super Horse. Number 2, here's the second list.
That's true.
Absolute Batman, approaching but never surpassing the line of being stupid and ridiculous. Or seeing a comic artist's handwriting or sound effects and realizing you see the art line in it. Series of panels where things stay the same besides one thing, which changes everything. Big double page spread title pages, a silent montage, preferably with recurring imagery, the fist pump page turn. So it's like if you turn the page and it makes you really hyped because they built up to this one moment. And then panels and or pages used to highlight the inventory someone has on them. And then number 3, the last one for you two to decide from. I'm going to fail at this one. BCW self-adhesive bags and boards, and like just their general like glory and vibe and all this stuff that they do for us. CLZ app sound effect when you scan the barcode and it does this like R2D2 style jingle at you that you've just done something spectacular. The Wednesday Comics approach, the approach of doing like the newspaper style with like the anthology and everything. When you go into a comic shop and there's sun-bleached posters because they've been there forever, but they're glorious and they're like celebrating the history of comics. Mark Waid's knack for continuity. Same-day digital releases on Hoopla from Image and Skybound. You get free comics, baby. And then lastly, when a comic has a recipe in it. So between lists 1, 2, and 3, I need you to choose a winner. And hopefully it's the same one. Otherwise, it's going to be awkward as hell. We're going to have to find another guest. It's going to be Matt Rosenberg, probably.
It's tough. It's a lot of information.
Yeah.
I know. I knew I was throwing a lot at you. Do you need any recaps?
Oh, man. And I mean, these are all things I like.
Were there a couple specific ones, like not just full teams, but were there specific ones that you guys really liked that really popped at you when Dave was reading them?
I mean, I'm really stuck on the idea of the inventory page thing. There is something to that.
I was particularly taken by 10 p.m. Post 10 p.m. San Diego Comic-Con walks.
That's good.
Are you familiar with the feeling?
Those are very
excellent. Familiar with the feeling? Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, how many did we go on just a couple months ago ourselves, Ethan? And that seems to be where the unpacking of the day, happens. That's where some of the best ideas come from for some of the creators in the room, I find.
Yeah, just into a corpse. Yeah.
You're kind of coasting off of all that energy.
Yeah.
As you deteriorate. The self-adhesive bags and boards, yes, save my life every single day. I love them. Can't beat them.
I knew you were feeling that one because
you're too. I think list 2 was.
We got one vote. Griffin,
Ethan
what do you got?
List 2, yeah.
List 2 had a lot more of the like formal things that get me excited. I feel like you were talking about the big title spreads and sound effects in the line art and fist pump page turns, which are all things that Ethan and I are always like, how do we get those things in there? So I love all of those things. But I don't know, there was something special about list 1 that I was hearing and I was like, yeah, this is an eclectic collection of things that I would not have immediately thought of that, yes, I love about comics. I'm going number 1, yes.
All right. Unfortunately, we have co-champions, which excludes Badr, Chris Hacker, and David Harper, the champions of the fantasy draft. Oh, Badr, you're doing celebration.
You deserve it.
Drop for
even though I smell collusion, but you know what? It's all good. I'm gonna let the listeners be the tiebreaker. All right?
Listeners be the tiebreaker. So if you all prefer Badr, we'll make Badr the winner. But all right, that's it. The winner, the co-winner, the winners are Chris and David. So that's all we have for you for this week's episode of Off Panel.
Yeah.
Thanks to Ethan and Griffin for coming on to be our guest judges.
Yeah, big
and
shout out.
Badr and Chris, thank you for fantasy drafting with me. I really appreciate you all taking the time.